I was the only person in the world to ever photograph him underwater. I went all the way to Norway for 10 days and it cost me like $11,000 and I didn't get one swim with an orca. Everyone knew at that stage that I'd taken the photo of Migaloo and they were so
You would have been
jealous.
so famous there at the
They
time.
were so jealous.
You just jumped in fully clothed.
The boat was off. I just thought when I went into the water, he's just going to swim past or, and I didn't have flippers on and I'm just laying there and he just comes straight at me.
In Antarctica when you're filming, did you get to go in the water?
Yeah, I did. -2. They got a rope on you just in case you have a heart attack.
Why is it important to keep your eyes on the shark?
Because they're very clever predators and they know as soon as you look away, they've got a chance to come in.
You've done a lot of photography for Chris Hemsworth. Did you feel the pressure?
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure. I tend to develop a good relationship with people I take photos of. If you feel not comfortable and you feel like there's something there, then get out of the water.
Today we're here with an award-winning photographer and videographer, Sony ambassador, and I would say, the personal photographer of Migaloo, Craig Parry. Thank you for coming on.
Sammy, thanks for having me, mate. Stoked to be here.
Now, Migaloo, I'm so interested.
Yeah.
I've heard you have a license to shoot Migaloo. How do you even get that?
That was a bit of luck because I was doing some work for BBC and they sort of wrote to the Department of Environment in Australia and we got the permit and then from there it was just came to fruition and it wasn't just about having the permit, the whole process of luck to actually see him, in the water. It's like a needle in a haystack. It's really hard to find, and so we're very, very lucky. Yeah,
because he's beloved in Australia. Like everyone loves Migaloo. When I talk about him, he's famous.
Yeah, that's right.
And then
he's like I guess a symbol or of. I think he gives whales a voice around the world and get them noticed and encourages protection and all that sort of stuff. And people around, especially my area, Byron Bay, it's like a cult, everyone just loves Migaloo and they talk about him. Each migration, they're always talking about, when are we going to see Migaloo this year? And it's just lovely to see.
And you're the only Australian that can go out and photograph him. Like, what a special thing.
Yeah, it was good. Like, there's a few people that do this, but they don't focus on just humpback whales. They'll have a permit for cetaceans throughout the Commonwealth waters. So, it was it feels good to have that, under my belt. So when people go, are you allowed to do that? I'm like, yeah.
Because we were up in the Gold Coast trying to find whales and Ramon had his drone and he had to stay a certain distance away to be safe. Sure. And you got every man and their dog pulling you up. I can imagine when they pull you up and you're like, you wait a minute.
Get some trolls on social. So
but you got the doc.
Yeah, I got the doc, so all good.
Yeah, Cass is not coming for you.
No.
They do keep an eye out.
They do, yeah.
Now, have you ever had to get his signature, Migaloo?
I asked for it once, but he just stood in front of me. He swam right in front of me and went, woo! And that was it. Like,
that's a yes.
No signature. Oh, yes or no. I can't really translate that. But it's funny because it just happened that I was the only person in the world to ever photograph him underwater, and for him to actually just stop in front of me and allow me to do that and then create that whale song in front of me, which I photograph whales every year for the last 15 years. I've never had a humpback actually do it directly at me. I've heard them below me, but for him to stop and do it at me was just priceless and definitely it was a defining moment, not in just my career but also in my time on Earth. It was a really special and emotional time. Yeah.
When that moment happened, and then you got out of the water back on the boat, like how'd you feel?
It was, when I look back on it, I never expected to have that encounter, and I didn't have any of my flippers on, had all my clothes on, because it happened that quickly. I could see him coming.
You just jumped in fully clothed.
We had the boat was off. I was just there photographing him as he's sort of jumping in the background. And then I was never anticipated for him. I did always have the water housing in my boat, but I never anticipated that he would actually come over and sort of stop at our boat. And that sort of gave me I just thought when I went into the water, he's just going to swim past or, and I didn't have flippers on and I'm just laying there and he just comes straight at me. Couldn't ask for a better moment, for that to happen. And it was when I got back on the boat, my dad was on the boat with me, which was lovely. And he's just like, did you get the shot? Is it in focus?
Yeah.
I'm like, I think so. And that was a really good moment. I cuddled him and it's so good to have those moments with your father and just once in a lifetime moment.
So special that he was on that boat with you.
Oh, totally. Yeah. The whole journey out there was pretty traumatic because Dad, we were out there. He's into his 70s, and I said to him, go left, and he went right. This is going through a breakwall bar. We went vertically up a wave, and it was so scary. And it was weird because everything fell as we were going vertical in the boat. Everything fell to the back of the boat, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to flip it. And then because it was such a really calm day, we got over the wave, and it was just like we got shot by 100 bullets but didn't get hit. I just felt like we should be in the water, we should be capsized, but we're all dry. The drone was at the back of the boat, wasn't damaged. My water housing wasn't damaged, and it was so it was the whole story about getting out there was even a struggle. And when we were out at Byron, I was like having a cup of soup, and I said, it was 10 a.m. I think it was, and I said, Dad, I don't think we're going to see him. And then I looked north, and I see this little red dot, and that was a Channel 7 helicopter just circling. And I said, Dad, I bet he's up there. So we went up there, and because of that helicopter, we scored. But if we hadn't seen the helicopter, there's no way we would have seen Migaloo. That's how hard it is to see, and we were the only ones around. The helicopter went into refuel, and we were the only ones out with him. And I think news spread when Channel 7 broadcast it, and then about 5 other boats came out and we went in.
That is insane.
It was a beautiful moment. Yeah.
It's crazy too how the approach was a bit hectic and all over
chaotic,
the shop, and then it just
calm
the moment.
Yeah, and that's, I think, throughout, when I go to Antarctica and when I go to these places that are really off the grid, it's really the whole journey out there is the real memorable parts, And I think that was such a great, I guess, part of the story was the actual trials to get out there and then have that sort of happen for us because we didn't really think we were going to see it.
I bet you backed up that footage straight away.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that's it. As soon as I got the photo, I rang up National Parks and said, "Oh my God, you won't believe it!" And so it was really good.
And was that a pivoting moment in your career? Did that help elevate the work you were already doing?
It was a part of the beginning. 2014 was, I guess, the beginning of my career in a way that I had won, International Landscape Photo of the Year and Underwater Photo of the Year, and then my Instagram went crazy with some images I captured in Tonga, and that went from, I got 30,000 followers overnight. From there, it sort of really started to pulse, and I sort of felt, this is going to work for me. And then after that, it was 2016, so 2 years later, I photographed Migaloo. And I remember when I took that photo, it was only a week after I took that photo, I went back over to Tonga to photograph whales underwater. And Tonga's a place where it's a mecca of underwater photographers from all around the world, some of the best in the world. And everyone knew at that stage that I'd taken the photo of Migaloo, and they were so
You would have been
jealous.
so famous there at the time.
They were so jealous. They were I could just tell, everyone was like, "You got the photo of the white whale, you lucky bugger." That's my dream. So.
But you work hard, you put yourself in that position.
That's right, yeah. That's the thing. When I'm working on the boat, I live in Byron, so I'm always going out on it. Honestly, I would say out of 10 times I go out, I probably get one, not even one good encounter. So you have to work really hard as a photographer to get those magic shots. And I go out all the time. Sometimes I'll just turn around and come back. The water's not clear enough for me. As I'm getting older, I'm getting fussier. And so it is a lot of hard work, and it does cost money every time I go out with fuel and stuff. So it can be a little bit demoralising when you're out there and you got all your gear ready and then you just don't do it. It's sometimes I have been actually going down in the dirtier water, and I've actually not regretted it. I got down there and I'm like, wow, there's actually some really cool things happening in front of me here, and I just have to get closer to the subject so the water's not such a big issue.
Because I've always wondered that when you're shooting nature, something you can't control at all, getting the shots, you've got to be in the position to get the shots first.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a whole process that I suppose just watching your socials, people wouldn't realise.
No, that's right. It paints a different picture, doesn't it? I went all the way to Norway for 10 days, and it cost me $11,000, and I didn't get one swim with an orca.
Wow,
it was a most horrible experience. But then it makes it really special when you do get these amazing encounters, and that sort of amplifies that experience. And there's so many factors as a photographer. You can get can damage your camera equipment. You have rough seas, or you can have really bad weather, flooding, and all those things are there to stop you. But that really makes it even more beautiful when you do get those beautiful days. Like, so people come out with me, and like I'm 45 now, and people come out with me and they're like, they're a lot younger than me, and they've only been doing photography for a little while, and they go, "You're always stoked, it's like this is the first time you've ever seen this," and that's the stuff I hold on to when I'm out, and
you love it.
And I think that's the fuel that I have, is that I have that passion that sort of doesn't leave me and doesn't feel like I've exhausted it, so yeah, and nature does that for me.
It's amazing you found something that provides that much enjoyment, and then you can put your life's work into it. Because I think when you find that enjoyment for something, you can put that work in, and when you have those missed opportunities, they suck, but because you enjoy it so much, you find yourself back out there quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I take friends out with me in the boat, and one of my favourite pastimes is just to sit behind the waves and watch the dolphins jump out and photograph them. And I'm doing it, and I'm there for like an hour and a half doing it. My mates are sitting up the front of the boat. They're like, "Come on, man." We've already seen 100 of them. I say, "Yeah, but the next one could be a good shot, know." And I just can't leave. Like, that whole anticipation and missing out that I'm not going to get the shot is quite strong for me. And that sort of, I think that brings me into another level where that's why I do get the good photos, because I'm out there and I'm really focused. It's like I've got this ability to, when I'm in this zone, like I'm this like creative flow state where I see things and hear things that people can't, are sort of oblivious to. I'm really focused, and my senses are really buzzing, and that allows me to see things in a different way, I feel, and that sort of helps. And I remember my teachers at school telling my parents, Craig's easily distracted, he's not concentrating, because like I'll look at something and just ADHD, whatever they call it.
I struggled in school as well. And when I found the things that I like to do, I excelled at them because I actually enjoyed them. But at school, I was just so lost and bored. Do you reckon it's intuition? Like, do you reckon?
So, yeah. And it's also, I feel, a collective sort of influence from parents and sort of them spending that time with you when you're younger and influencing you in that area as well. My dad was always into traveling and going out on the boat and loves wildlife. We'd go camping all the time. So I think that all sort of works towards who I am today.
Now, with the whales and Migaloo, when you go out to find them, is it literally just having a stab in the dark? Do you have a hunch? Do you have an idea where they swim? How do you find them before you can even photograph them?
Yeah, that's a part of it. Like, during the whale season, I'm out most afternoons. I in the last couple of years, I've sort of made a conscious effort of going out either early in the morning or late in the afternoon, because I love the look of water that looks like oil, like glass, and you get the nice colours off the reflection. And because I've shot it a million times with a whale breaching in the middle of the day, and I felt, well, if I could add some colour to it and a new dimension, then or really it's a stab in the dark for me. I'll go out, like I said, and I won't see anything, and I come back, and that could happen 10 times, like I said, or 20 times, and then you get that special afternoon, which I had last year, and it was just full glass off, and the colour of the water was like pink from the reflection of the sunset, and I was out like so far out by myself on the boat in the middle of nowhere, and I just had this whale just playing, just literally like it was on show for me. I felt like if I were to order a whale shoot, that's what it would be. It's just breaching, just coming next to the boat.
And breaching's jumping?
Yeah, breaching's, they sort of come up. If you see it underwater, they'll dive down about 20, 30 metres, turn back up, and then they use their pecs. They jump out. They've got 40-ton animal, and they're getting 40 tons of weight out of the water. That's a lot of energy. So that's why, I don't get sick of that, because I just think about the concept of a 40-ton animal just jumping out of the water for fun.
Yeah, because I was going to say, why do they do it?
Yeah, I mean, people have their opinions. I reckon it's obviously a mood-based reaction. So they could be doing it if there's a shark around, to sort of intimidate the shark if it's too close to their calf. And it could be because they've got their skins. So when whales come up from Antarctica, they shed a lot of skin because the water temperature changes. So a lot of the whales, in Antarctica are quite green. They got like a moss on them.
Yeah.
When they come up here, they start shedding their skin. So every time they breach, you'll see bits of skin on the surface of the water, and you'll see the seagulls going down and feeding on that. But yeah, I think there's multiple things, and one of them is, especially juvenile humpbacks, they will breach for fun. I see them doing it. They come up to the boat, so they want my attention, and that's when it's really rewarding.
Wow. And I know with flying drones, there's rules and you've got to have certain permits.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere you've been in the world where there's just been really weird rules you've had to follow as a photographer or videographer?
Yeah, Antarctica's one. There's a treaty down there that's very strict. So there's bird flu going through there. I don't know how prevalent it is, but when I was in Antarctica 2 years ago, you weren't allowed to sort of get onto the level of a penguin, so you couldn't lie down or kneel down and photograph them.
That is a weird rule.
Yeah,
so you can stand, but you can't lay down.
Yeah, it's such a weird rule, and you can also be on a boat, like a tender, like a ribbed boat, and drive up to an iceberg in front of so there's lots of weird rules that people make up. They're scared that humans are going to transmit the virus to the birds, but generally it's a migrative disease, and the birds will spread that through themselves. But there's that, and America's really strict with drones now, and I have a feeling that they'll probably ban them in the not too distant future. They're already super strict. You can't really fly anywhere over there, you know. We're very lucky in Australia, so that's probably the only place. It's good to see that there is regulation underwater as well for, you know, tourism, you know, can be quite impactful for animals. So yeah, it's good that there are rules out there so you don't get cowboys going around running over whale sharks and stuff, you know.
What about in Antarctica when you're filming? Did you get to go in the water?
Yeah, I did.
So you swam in the waters of Antarctica?
Yeah, it's -2. The water actually is below freezing because the salt content stops the water from freezing.
Did you have all the special equipment?
I've done a bit of diving in Norway, and I've done a bit of surf photography in Norway, and that was
scuba diving.
No, just free diving.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was in Norway. It was 6 degrees, 3 degrees. So I felt, well, if I go to Antarctica and it's -2 or 0, the difference between -2 and 3 degrees isn't really that much. And I would just wear this 8mm Patagonia wetsuit with a hood, gloves, booties. Get in there, take photos, get out, and it's not too bad, because the thing that really hurts you is the water and when it hits your face. So when you got
like it stings.
Yeah, it takes your breath away. Yeah, but I'm off to Antarctica in a couple of weeks, and what we do, the polar plunge they call it. So we jump in your undies.
Yeah,
it wakes you
hectic.
Up. Yeah, so hectic. They got a rope on you just in case you have a heart attack.
Oh yeah, that is insane.
Yeah,
but I can't imagine like seeing something in the waters of Antarctica and you're like, right, I'm going to get in that water.
Yeah, it is when you get down there and you see that crystal clear water, and you just sort of want to. I do.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a cool little project for you to jump off an iceberg.
I'd do a dive.
Totally.
You'd probably need the rope.
Yeah. That's it.
Pull me back to the boat.
Yeah.
I hate the cold because I'm so thin too.
Yeah.
Training, I get freezing.
Just get out there quick, mate.
Yeah. Have you had any close encounters with sharks when you're filming underwater? Because I can imagine you're always in possibly deep water.
Yeah.
With no one else but yourself.
That's right. Yeah, and I have a sixth sense when it comes to like bad times, you know. So like, because I've spent so much time in the ocean, I'm sort of learnt over the years, you know, when it's not so safe that I should be in it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's you got to really listen to those parts of your brain that are telling you, you know, if you feel not comfortable and you feel like there's something there, then get out of the water, because there generally is. There's that sixth sense that we have, and I think you got to listen to it. So yeah, there's multiple times where, like the other day I went out and there was a white pointer, and it just didn't feel right. And my mate goes, "Oh yeah, there was a 3 meter white pointer just 500 meters over there this morning," and I could feel it, and you could tell all the fish were close to the reef, you know, so they were hiding from whatever was out there. So that's happened. I've swum with a tiger shark in Hawaii for just over an hour, and I do that on purpose. Like, I go out with some friends over there and they run shark swimming sort of experiences, and we had a big tiger shark, and And that was, for me, way outside my comfort zone to deliberately go out there and swim with a it was almost 5 meters. It was huge.
Tigers are dangerous. I've heard the ones to look out for are tigers, bulls, great whites.
Yeah.
So when you're going out there to swim with a tiger,
Yep.
where's the safety barrier?
You have to do it with an expert, and even then it's, they're unpredictable. And there's been situations with my friend who takes me out. There's been really unpredictable moments, but it's all about how the animal is, how it's, I guess, approaching you. So what it looks like when it approaches you, and how fast it's moving. So that you'll get a tiger shark that's really cruisy, and its pectoral fins are up and they're not down. It hasn't arched its back at all. So there are behaviours and body postures that you have to look out for when you swim with sharks, because those things they're a warning sign. It doesn't mean they're going to attack you in 5 minutes, but there's actually a really this last year in Tonga, I took a group of people and was swimming with whales, and this is where that moment, like I told you about how that sixth sense comes in. And I saw these common dolphins, and I'm jump in the water, and this I'm in water that's 2 kilometers deep, it's so deep, we're in around the trench. It's such a weird thing to feel that you're 2 kilometers. If you drop your camera,
not getting it back.
No. So I had this weird feeling. I was diving down, and I sort of felt like something was watching me, and I look over my shoulder, and in the water column is just this oceanic white tip, which is rated the most. If you Google it, it's rated one of the most dangerous sharks in the world, because they call it a shipwreck shark. They were famous for eating all the shipwreck survivors that fell overboard, and it was just sitting there looking at me. And those sharks are like the bulldogs of the sea. They've got no boundaries. They're not a big shark.
What do they look like underwater?
They're really dominant, and they've got a nice set of teeth that its jaw generally stays open a little bit, so you see its teeth, and it's got a really rounded dorsal fin, and it's a big pectoral fin, so it's made for traveling huge distances. So they're a pelagic shark that travel from continent to continent, and just feed it on scraps. They eat whale poo, they eat dolphin poo, and so they're always, if you're ever going to see them, it's like the scavengers. And if you're ever going to see them, it's going to be behind a big pod of pilot whales or a pod of migrating oceanic dolphins. And I just saw it, and I'm like, oh my god! And it just looked at me and it started swimming towards me, and I could see it was a little bit, what's the word? Not jeopardized, but it didn't look healthy. It looked a little bit too thin than normal. So I knew it was compromised. So I knew something wasn't right. I had one of my students in the water with me that I was teaching photography. And I said, mate, and as I looked at him, he had his back turned to the shark. You always got to keep your eye on the sharks. And he had his back turned to it. And the shark noticed that I had my eye on it. But as soon as it noticed that my student had his back turned, it literally bolted at him. I would say it was probably going about 40 k's an hour, that fast. And that's what they do. They come in and they'll bump you, and then they'll circle back around, and they might do that 2 times or 3 times, but on the 3rd time you'll get a bite. And I yelled at him. I actually got footage of it, and I yelled at him. I said, "Shark!" And he turned around just at the last minute with his water housing and blocked it. But that was, and he was like, when that happened, he just melted into this child. He's whimpering, and I had to push him back to the boat. And when you get scared and you sort of feel like all your energy gets zapped out of you, and I feel like that's what happened. So I had him in front of me just watching. The shark was just watching us, jumped on, and none of the people on the boat knew what happened, and they're on the back of the boat in the water just having a good time. And me and him were scrambling up the ladder, and they're like, "What?" I said, "It's a shark." It's
wow.
Yeah. So that's probably the worst experience I've had in the water.
That's eerie. And just watching,
just watching it, and I could just feel it. And last year was a really busy time. I don't know what it was in Tonga, but there was a lot of oceanic white tip encounters. No one got bitten, but yeah, they are a very dominant sort of in your face sort of shark. Whereas tiger sharks, yeah, they are dangerous, but they're quite shy. And
what about bulls? Aren't they quite
aggressive? Bulls are quite aggressive. They tend to sort of hang around in the dirty sort of river water.
That's scary.
And that's why you get bites, because they don't know what you are. They see a splash and they think you're a mullet or a jewfish. Grab your leg.
So why is it important to keep your eyes on the shark?
Because they're very clever predators, and they know as soon as you look away, they've got a chance to come in.
They know that.
Yeah. And so a lot of my friends that I dive with, they deliberately look away just to get the shark closer to them. So keep your eye on the shark. If it arches its back and puts its pectoral fins down, get out of the water. If it comes in it charges you. So that, like I said, if it charges you once, get out, because the second time it will bite, generally.
And normally you'll have a warning shot of that charge?
Yeah, you normally get... Then they normally will hit you with their nose before they bite, yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah.
DEA.
Yeah.
You get in the water with them, but you love them.
Yeah, I love them, but you got to have that real... I think some people can be a bit complacent when they're on their social media about swimming with sharks and making out like they're, a friendly little puppy dog, but you've got to have respect for the animal and don't think you can turn your back on it.
Now, in a space like photography with social media that arguably could be extremely saturated, how do you stand out?
Oh, God.
How do you stand out?
I don't know. I think a niche. I think holding... I think that's why I sort of pursued that whole underwater realm, because not many people were doing it. I enjoyed it, and it was a point of difference where everyone was doing landscape photography. And I've always sort of grabbed onto things that are new. So, drones came out. I was already flying remote control helicopters with cameras underneath them, getting that point of difference. So I was doing those things.
Remote control helicopters before drones?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's because drones couldn't lift digital SLR. They weren't. They didn't have the capacity.
RC helis.
Yeah,
They must have been big.
I was big and scary and dangerous, and the blades would cut your head off. That it was solid. Yeah, and I took the first big award I had won in 2014 was the International Landscape Photo of the Year, and that was taken from a remote control helicopter. And it was funny because it created a bit of from the older crew that were entered the competition. They're like, "Oh, well, he didn't take the photo. The helicopter did." And I'm like, "Well, do you put
with the mind of its own?
Yeah. Do you put your camera on a tripod? Yeah. Well, okay, the tripod.
Took the photo.
So there was a little bit of because that was all new technology, and the older crew. Yeah. So that was so those sort of things I think are really important to, if you're trying to start, in the industry, find something that not everyone's doing. Even if everyone's doing it, just try and perfect that, and don't get too rattled with social media, because honestly that will drain you. It's very hard to satisfy, especially being a photographer, the social media aspect. Social media wants you to be a videographer now, a storyteller, all those things, and it's really challenging. It can be almost too much that you just quit, because you just... If you're going, well, I'm not getting my likes on my social media, and if that's important to you, then you're not doing photography for the right reason.
And what's your driver?
My driver is that indescribable feeling I get when I take a good photo. I just get this real, I clench my fist, and it's like that. And I get back to the computer and I've got that adrenaline. It's quite draining, because I know after I go through the whole process,
you're gonna crash.
I'm exhausted. I'm just done. So I think that's the addictive part. My other part of it is the experiences that I have with it. So being able to go to Antarctica and get paid to do that, or take people to Tonga and let them swim with whales and see how they enjoy it, and if that's their creating a bucket list thing for them, that's the rewarding part. So there's all these different facets of my career that I enjoy, but really the essence of it is that feeling that I do get when I take that magic shot. And I know it's going to be a really popular, people are going to love it straight away, because I've just developed that eye over time. Yeah.
I feel the same when I make a social media video.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's it.
I'm like, that's... And sometimes you can't even put your finger on what it is, but it just sits right with your emotions.
That's
you can
right.
look at it and just say, yeah.
Well, especially after you've done it a few times, what what it is, and when it happens, you can't. If you do know what it is, and you can't replicate that every time, but when it is right, like
it's special.
Yeah.
Now you've got your masterclass for photography. What's your 3 quick tips for any beginner that could be better?
Okay. Don't worry too much about spending too much on a camera. That's a big one.
Like buy an expensive camera?
Yeah, don't buy an expensive camera. You don't have to. There's technology now for the last 10 years has created some fantastic cameras, and to be honest, the technology hasn't really changed. It's ever since mirrorless has started, the technology hasn't really jumped leaps and bounds. There is AI now coming out in cameras, which really helps with focus technology. But to be honest, the A7R2, which I got out in, that's from Sony that's 2014, 2015. That's still an amazing camera, and you can get those cameras for $1,000, as long as you've got something. I like to be able to change my lenses, have something wide angle, have something zoom. You don't really want to be buying lenses that have, say, a 24 focal range to 400 or 600. You're going to be disappointed with the sharpness and the focus speed of those lenses. Those sort of one-stop shop lenses don't work very well.
Gotcha.
Tip 2?
Go ahead.
Try and move outside your comfort zone with settings. So most of my students, they're either stuck on aperture priority, shutter priority, or full auto. So what I tend to do is I try and tell them to sort of get outside that comfort zone. And to do so, I just get them to stick on auto ISO, and then get them to change the shutter and the aperture just to work out how those factors work in taking a photo. That's a really good tip. And that way, in time, it'd be much easier for you to go to full manual, because full manual is the only thing I use, because I want to have full control on every photograph I take. Yeah. Number 3?
For the beginners. For the photographers like me.
Number 3. Geez, that's a tough one. What else?
Maybe remember your SD cards.
Yeah. Remember charge batteries.
Charge your cameras.
I'll plan your trips. If you're going on holidays, try and plan your trips. Autumn's a really good season all around the world. So autumn's my favourite season. I think plan your trips seasonally, and if you're interested in taking photos of animals, just do research before you go over. And if you say you're going to Africa, try and research on good guides over there that can show you these animals. So I think research is a really important part of taking a good photo and making that sort of opportunity come to you a lot easier.
Now, dealing with pressure, talk about being in a high performance environment. You've done a lot of photography for Chris Hemsworth. Did you feel the pressure the first time you got to shoot with him? Have you been used to dealing with that pressure for a long time? What was that like?
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure. I mean, I tend to develop a good relationship with people I take photos of. So with Chris, we're friends, and so that's nice to have that, because he's relaxed and he'll give me more of his time. It is stressful. Say if National Geographic give me a storyboard, they'll give me a shot list to take, which I find really handy. So they'll have a few sketches, and they'll go, well, okay, we want Chris Hemsworth on a surfboard. Underneath, we want a shark.
Easy done.
Yeah, easy done. I can do that.
Let me call Chris. Let me call the shark.
That's right.
You're good to go.
So I've got a plan in my head how we're going to do this, and having those sketches there in front of me are super, super handy, because I find visualization before I do something, for yourself, as an athlete.
I visualize my dives all the time.
Totally, and it's so important. And if you can visualize, because I'm kind of lucky, because I can look at a sketch and visualize that still moment. But as a diver, you're virtually moving everywhere.
It's the same process.
Same process, but you've got to. I think as a diver, you'd have to probably go into a deeper sort of sense of every.
I feel the mental pattern.
Yeah.
Like a diver, I see it and then I feel it.
Yeah, that's it.
How you pull it.
And that's the thing. And I find in so many times in my life, whether it's photography, but if I visualize something, a goal that I want to get, it's pretty funny, because when I met my wife in 2014, she asked me to write some goals down, and it was all these things like get sponsored by Sony, blah 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 blah. And they pretty much all came true, It was really strange that what I wrote down came to fruition, and it really says a lot about goal setting, doesn't it?
Oh, 100%. Goal setting and visualization.
Yeah.
Like I sometimes pull out a list of goals I wrote 5-6 years ago. It's nearly scary.
Yeah, I know.
You live in that and more.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, because you look back at your old self and you're like, man, I'm all being so stoked if I looked at my future now, like, yeah.
Yeah. Like dreams back then become reality.
That's
Through goal
it.
setting though, like writing things down, I visualize my goals as well. And that's something you've always done?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's sort of, it gives you, I think it says a lot about this sort of the universe around you, making things come to fruition. It's really interesting.
Because even with the animals, so something that's out of your control, like an animal,
Yeah.
if you visualize that shot,
I have, yeah.
it actually, the universe will kind of bring it together.
So my first time ever diving with whales, I visualized this photo of a whale spy hopping, which means it's got half its body out of the water and just sort of balances there. And the idea of the whale doing that is it wants to see outside of the water. So I had this visualization where I wanted to get a photo of it spy hopping, but also have the top part out of water of my camera and the under, have a big dome port. So I've got
the half.
Yeah, half. And I had this visualization of doing that. And it's funny because when I went to Tonga for the first time, visualization was there and it happened. Like it lit, and ever since then, I haven't got a shot as good as that, half in, half out. Like it, and that's because I was so, I think, focused on getting it. And I've been trying to get it since, again.
Yeah.
Because I do that. I'll get a shot and I'll try and perfect it, but I can't perfect this shot from 2014. It's impossible for me.
It's
Don't know
incredible.
what it is.
And then when Nat Geo give you a sheet and you got to go shoot that, is that stressful? Because a lot of it's so out of your control.
Oh, there's been so many shoots where I've been on that the weather's been terrible and we've only got this small window and we literally have to pack up and go, and there's a lot of pressure, and there are times, where I'm with Chris and, production are filming Chris and Chris has to fly out at 4 p.m. and he has to go and they're running late and they've got to get the shots for production. And then I'm just the photographer guy waiting for the portrait shoot. He couldn't do it, and he flies off. And so I've got Nat Geo going, oh, where are those shots from? And I'm like, I'm sorry. And it's hard, yeah. But you just got to roll with it and take every opportunity as it comes and try and end of the day, some things are out of your control.
So you just do your best and then...
Yeah, do your best, be efficient. I'm always trying to find opportunities where, and that's like I said, a part of working with movie stars and stuff is developing that relationship with them so they find time, because if you don't have that relationship with them, they won't respect you and you're just another guy in the production team that is asking for their precious time. And
yeah, I even know the photographers around Pool Deck. If
Yeah.
I know them and they're my friends,
oh, you'll give them more time.
I'd do anything they
Yeah,
need.
yeah,
But
it's great.
but I think that comes down to you as a person as well.
That's
If
right.
you're a good person, they can see that. They'd be
Yeah.
more likely to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
But how'd you even get into shooting celebs and doing stuff
it
like
was
that?
all from Chris. I was doing drone work and Chris had some production that he had to get done for Swiss Vitamins, and so I just did one of those. And then I worked on the producer. I used to be Land Rover ambassador, and the producer that filmed me launching the new Discovery, he goes, "Oh, Craig, we need a photographer for this show. I can't tell you what it's about." And I'm like, "Oh yeah," and then. He goes, "Oh, it's with Chris Hemsworth." I was like, "Oh yeah, wow, okay. Well, I've already worked with him, so he knows me." So that's where it sort of started with Limitless, and from there it was great because that was the golden age before COVID. Because all the companies had lots of money, and it was so good. I was flying in a Learjet with Chris around Australia, and it's
like private jets.
Yeah, private jets eating KFC. It was
That'd be dope.
It was crazy, and just being able to drive up to the base of the Learjet and walk on, and you walk on and Chris is laying down on the couch over there's just a surreal environment. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And I always used to pinch myself, and I remember the last time I flew with him, I said, "Chris, this is probably the last time I fly in a private jet with you." And he's like, "Oh, what do you say that?" And I said, "Oh mate, this is it's so rare, it costs, I think it's $30,000 from Sydney to Ballina just on this Bombardier we were on. It's ridiculous money." So yeah, so those times, they're great, and they're the things you stick in your memory. And yeah.
Why did the networks lose so much money over COVID? Because I've noticed that too. I know social media taking off, less people watch TV and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you reckon it's the socials retracting from it, or?
Yeah,
why
I
is
think
it?
so. I just think I've noticed it too. You'll switch on your TV and there's 10 bloody different streaming, and they're all showing the same shows, you know, like Binge is showing the same movies as Netflix, and I think it's just saturated, and then I think they just started spending too much money on, you know, on that stuff, and they weren't budgeting, and I just think, and people are pretty struggling at the moment financially, and I think first thing they cut is a subscription to, you know, one of their 10 channels. So I think that's been a bit of a struggle for them. I did, over COVID, they did make a lot of shows, and I think they saturated themselves there, and that's why things have stalled a little bit.
Because you would have worked on some of these shows. And it was like, have you noticed budgets being trickled down?
Oh, hugely.
Really?
Like, yeah.
What do they cut, like, to save money?
Just because they're going broke.
Yeah.
Like Disney is struggling. Yeah, like they're cut, like,
because they own Limitless, don't they?
Yeah, they own Nat Geo,
okay.
and they, you know, Nat Geo, their offices, they trim their offices right back, and so there are big cuts out in the industry, and a lot of the I look at Netflix, and their share price is like, I think $800 a share. I just can't believe it. It's like
insane.
It's insane, but who knows what the future's going to hold for streaming things. But YouTube's getting quite popular, and you know, people are tending to go to YouTube to watch their content now. And,
yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Now, being a Sony ambassador, as you mentioned earlier, was a dream.
Yeah.
How did you make that become reality?
That was I put myself out there. I did it. I was putting myself out there quite a lot. 2013, 2014. You know, there's a lot of rejection, and a friend of mine said to me, I had a Canon camera, and he goes, "Oh, you should try this new Sony camera out." And I said, "Oh, what is it?" He goes, "It's new mirrorless technology." And I was like, "Okay." And so I rang them up, and they said, "We'll give you 30% off a camera." I rang the Sydney office, and I said, "Oh, yeah, wonderful." So I bought it off them, and I took that body, and it was good. My friend who told me about Sony, he also worked for Aquatech, which is a water housing company. So he gave me the prototype to fit this camera body. That was a brand new camera body. And I went to Tonga, and I got some amazing photos of whales, and I sent them back to Sony, and Sony were like, "Oh, can you come down for a meeting?" I'm like, "Yeah, no worries." And I'm in the lift at Sony's head office, and they knew, because I had my Instagram, and they knew what I looked like. I didn't know what they looked like. And I was in the lift with like the boss of Sony.
And you didn't know?
I didn't know. And I'm coming up the lift, and I get out, and he gets out, and I'm like, didn't know who he was. And I went to admin, and then I went into the meeting room, and he wasn't in there yet. And one of the girls goes, "Oh, so-and-so, Sean, I think his name was, saw you in the lift, and he got really excited that you're here." And it's like, okay, like, great. And that was great. And then I was signed on as ambassador. There was probably only 4 or 5 of us in Australia, and then they made me global ambassador, and and they've been a great support since. So I'm going down to Antarctica with them in a few weeks, and they support me with all my projects, and it's really good. Yeah.
It's insane, and you deserve it. You work hard. You take incredible shots.
Yeah. Cheers. Yeah.
Now, what about the other major thing that we actually, I suppose, have all done together on the Sydney Opera House?
Yes. Yep.
Your artworks, your photos went up. What was that like?
Surreal. That was probably the biggest profile thing I've ever happened to me. Like, as to be in my own country with the most iconic sort of what would you say, a landmark in Australia, and have my artwork plastered over it was nuts. And it was funny, when that happened, I was actually shooting Limitless in Sydney.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so Chris and everyone had seen it. And it was good kudos for me, because all the production team were from America and England.
That would have been like mad bragging rights.
Yeah,
by the way, tune in tonight. My stuff's on the Opera House.
Yeah, I'm on the Opera House. Yeah. Like, what?
If you have a minute, swing by it.
Yeah. So that was really good timing for me, because it sort of gave me that sort of, I don't know, I was like, they would have thought I was better than what I was. You know what I mean? I am on the Opera House tonight.
Well, you're in Sydney.
Next week, I don't know where I'm next week. Maybe London or Times Square or something.
So it just worked perfectly.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, and it was super. And my wife came down, and it's good. We stayed in Taronga Zoo and had a nice night there, and it was a good time, and I was very proud. And so many beautiful people around me at that time as well, and everyone's gifted, and it was just a magic moment. It was good to do it for the ocean as well. And,
all in the name of sustainability.
Yeah.
And my final question is, what's your dream for the future? Where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself in 10, 20 years?
Jeez.
Because you already sounds like you're living your dream.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like my wife. She goes, what do you want for your birthday? I've got everything.
That's
I would have to say I'd like to work less, but then have more experiences for people. Like take people on more premium experience, but also have my kids experience what I do as well. Like it's really difficult at the moment. They're quite young, but they still come away and we go snorkeling and stuff. But it'd be nice for them to sort of come along too, because I remember those with my mother and father taking me away. They were the most memorable parts of my life. Seeing other places in the world and visiting those. So that's probably what I'll want to do is just create more experiences for my kids are trained. Don't worry.
They show
they can
cameras.
Free dive and. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, they use my cameras all the time, and
that'd be special.
Yeah, it's great. It's good to see them have that sort of passion. Yeah.
Well, Craig, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming on.
No, Sam.
I find it fascinating the world that you live in.
Cheers. Good on you. Cheers, mate.